when I came, and I was a graduate from a pharmacy school, a very young specialist when I came to this country. And of course, I couldn't get a job as a pharmacist because of the licensing. I didn't have a license to work as a pharmacist, but I did not want to go to school again. Then I passed exam for pharmacy technician, and I worked for almost 19 years in Midway Hospital as a pharmacy assistant technician. And then I found a job in Jewish Family Service because apparently they consider me bilingual. And I took a job in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, at Jewish Family Service, and I'm still working there. And somebody asked me a question, how I became a social worker. And I never went to school for social work. I was grandfathered, and Judy made kind of corrected me. After all, she said probably grandmothered uh, for social work because I have medical background and I had more than 10 years experience working with community, kind of like a social worker. That's how they granted our social work license. Is that any question about that? No. Okay, and you can hear me all okay? No problem understanding? Great, great. I will be looking my papers a little bit because it is some statistics that I wrote up, and that's what I will be kind of reading, but I'll try to do very slowly. Okay, in the beginning, going to be just a Russian kind of overview about immigration. Today, according to the community leaders, it's approximately 60,000 Russian speakers call Minnesota home. If you look, if you Google it, going to be different statistics, but I did find a site that it said that Minnesota State Demographic Center estimated this number lower than 43,000 residents, but the most recent census reported that 14,000 of them, mostly older people who came along with their families, did grow up in Russia, worked in Russia, and even retired in Russia. What does it mean that families came like older people, like I brought my parents, they were in the 50s that time, some over 50s, and I came with my family, and that's how they consider that they grew up in Russia, worked in Russia, and retired in Russia. That's just a statistic, if I make myself clear, okay? There are two immigrant groups, Russian Jews that starting arriving somewhere in the beginning of the 70s, and they were escaping from state anti-Semitic discrimination. And the other group is Baptist or Orthodox Russian Christians running from religious persecution. There are two big groups. In Russia, atheism and anti-Semitism and racism have been always, of course, unofficial state policy in Russia from 1920s to 1991. If it became known that you are attending church or a synagogue, you could be demoted or fired from your work. Part of the internal Soviet passport, and I'll explain what that means, there are a fifth line. Then you understand, first name, last name, father's name, date of birth, and then the fifth line, it's always nationality. What it means, doesn't matter that I was born and raised in Lithuania or in Russia or in Ukraine, but I am Jewish. It means nationality not gonna be like in United States. You're a citizen of United States. You are American. You always gonna be a Jew. And that made very, very difficult for us to grow, to be there when my passport said that I am Jew. It was very difficult when you try to enter to university, to find a good job in Soviet Union, just because of that fifth line in your passport. Um, and because of that state of atheism for so many years, many Russians were atheists. They did not believe, they were not religious people. Is that clear? That's kind of overview? Okay. A little bit more overview, and then it's going to be much faster. Yes. Unmute that I can hear. Okay.
Okay. So my question is, you said something about anti-Semitism and racism were kind of state policy and
unofficial state
policy. Right. I got it. And that was from when you had sort of ended, right? In 1991, but when did it start? I missed that part.
Well, it's always been this way, but more started in 1920s to 1991. It was a little bit better after the perestroika than was in 1986. That was a little bit better, but still it's always existed and it's always will be there. That's never gonna change. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Compared with other major groups, immigrant groups in Minnesota, Russians are generally older, especially Jewish families. They have fewer children, with exception of Baptists. They're not Russian, they're not Jewish, except Baptists, and they're more educated. Many Russian hold professional positions like the doctors, engineers, teachers, and because although many encountered difficulties pursuing careers in United States when they came to United States, and it's like from my experience, because they did not have the certification or they were supposed to get a license to be engineer. That's what was difficult for them to get jobs when you're older. Does that make sense? Okay. And the Baptists that came from Ukraine, Moldova, or Central Asia, tend to be less educated than earlier immigrants. What I'm trying to say is that Jewish people start immigrate mostly from 70s to about 80. Then it was a big break, and not many immigrants came after the 80s, and then they start coming again after the 90s. And the same with Baptists, they start immigrating basically end of the 80s after the perestroika, 1986, and after a lot of came after the 90s or even after 2020. And those people are a little bit less education had, but they could find jobs they were employed by different factories, trades, service industries, and but many of them actually got some business in some successful businesses. The younger people could open like a lot of doing in construction work. I know a lot of clients are doing a lot of construction work. That's basically overview about immigration. And then I start talking about the clients and nursing homes and depression, and I will be talking about mental illness, a little bit about death that I know you guys interested, hospice that you interested, and that I have like, you know, a little bit talk about that. Any question about overview? No? Good. Okay. Well, now I will talk about my clients. Um, Everybody came to the new home to United States with a certain set of family rules and, of course, expectations. Um, some of my that comes from my experience, mostly from my experience and from other social workers that working with Russian immigrants. Um, some of my clients have a very hard time to understand freedom of speech, two-party system, and separation of power and legislative, uh, uh, difference between executive and judiciary. I can't pronounce, I'm sorry. They often associated with the weakness of the state because all their life was spent in dictatorial state because it's, you know, it's a communist country where they as citizens never had any civil right at all. And it was a big transition for them to understand the difference. From the past experience living in USSR, um, the life taught them to be very private and not to talk about the life and problem with anybody except the family and close friends. But when living in US, they could be excessively demanding to the social workers, to helpers, for the all past sufferings that they and injustices in Russia. Me as a social worker, I sometimes had a very difficult time because they were so demanding. It's like now everybody owes something that they have to do more. We have to do more for them because of the suffering, because they could not have that in Soviet Union. Is that clear of that part? A little bit about depression. Um, Many older Russians are suffering from depression. And you probably guys know that too from working in Sholom, reading the charts. Um, some of them, you know, worked as doctors, teachers, and so on in Russia, and they were always in demand. But moving to a new country, following their children, they started to face a new reality. First one, of course, language barrier. And also, um, children always were very busy building a new life, and grandkids, some they didn't even talk Russian. If they already, you know, the grandchildren were born here, so they didn't maybe speak Russian, and they have a difficult time to communicate. Um, and um, and that what they had kind of a disconnection and poor social life, and that's why they were some of them were depressed. Um, Mental illness is still considering in Russia a stigma, and I know here too could be. I have not just Russian clients, but I had American clients, and we understand that that could be like a stigma and um, regarded and disgraceful in Russian kind of cycle. Russian immigrants often do not disclose their family history of mental illness or past treatments. Many refuse to accept diagnosis of depression or mental illness from the doctor. Is there any question about that. Is that clear, guys? Okay. Yes.
So are you saying that they don't seek treatment for that
I
normally?
wouldn't say that they do not. Some of them do, and some of them not. Some will hide and will never tell, even it's going to be a questionnaire, are you depressed? You know, like we have also this question, 9 questions. They will say that everything is perfect. Me as a social worker, I know it's not perfect. And I several times try to talk to them to see a doctor. I would say 50-50. 50, they will go. Sometimes they listen to the children that tell them, please, mom, we need to see that you're not in Russia. You don't have to be afraid. There are good medications. They will accept, but some will not. Now I'll talk a little bit about death. I can't hear.
Yeah, I have a question on that too. Have you noticed a change with first generation and second generation that's kind of have become more accepting?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. More, yes. Right now, I'm kind of give you overall because I've been doing that for many years, but now it's much better. It is better. Just because families, the second generation, are, you know, more accepted that, they understand that mom or dad. I'm actually, I'll give you one example from my personal life. My dad, he was never, he was, well, he kind of held a good position in Lithuania, but he had mental illness and he was hiding from us. He would be, I was very little, and he would be up and down, very moody. And we saw that my father is just this kind of person, you know, that's it. He never went to the doctor. When we arrived to this country, I took him to the doctor and he was diagnosed bipolar. And I was afraid, but don't forget that was about 30 years ago, okay? I was afraid to tell my father that he has bipolar. I was afraid that I asked the doctor that time, give him medication, but I will probably have to tell him that that medication is from something else. And I did that way. He was taking his medications and but he never, until the day he died, he didn't know that he had bipolar. But my father died already 15 years ago. This is just an example that sometimes we have to do that in order for our parents or grandparents to get better. Is that clear? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Actually, I have one more example if we have enough time. I did a translation in one doctor's office, and that was quite a while ago too. The whole family at that time, daughter and a son, I believe, and the father and the father's wife, and myself as an interpreter, excuse me for a second, we came to the appointment because the family find out that father has brain tumor, cancer, but every member of the family knew about that he had cancer, except the patient father himself. I had a very difficult time to interpret in the doctor's office because it was a lot of pressure from the family. The doctor is telling the patient, you have cancer. He didn't know a word in English. That was, I missed that part. The doctor said, you have brain tumor. The family right away telling me in Russian, don't you dare to interpret that he has a brain tumor because he's gonna stop fighting for his life. And I said, I have to interpret, it's my job. We're talking in Russian. Doctor got very angry and he's telling me, use an interpreter. You have to interpret for me everything what the family is telling you. I have to hear what they have to say. And I said, I will, just give me a couple minutes to talk to the family. And then I interpret what the family wanted that the father would not know that he has tumor. And here what the doctor said, I will never forget. He is my patient, use the interpreter, and you have to say to the patient, regardless what the family wants, that he has cancer. That's, I'm not going to get to the detail, but that's, this is just trying to give you a point that apparently family is afraid that the father will stop fighting for his life if he'll find out that he has cancer. They want, you know, that's my, I don't know if that's, well, I wanted to share with you anyway that it just came up, okay? Let's talk a little bit about the death. The life, you understand, was very hard in Russia, and they didn't have time to think and never wanted to talk about death. It was a common order that the older parents and grandparents lived with their kids. Separate apartment was very, very difficult to get. That basically we lived all together, and children usually were decision makers and responsible for well-being and burial for their families. The notion of healthcare directive, I always had a very big problem to get a client to sign, to fill out the healthcare directive. It is something very different for my clients and usually difficult to explain and motivate them to sign in. In the best scenario, they will sign the power of attorney. And they're always telling me that my family will take care of me, my family will make a decision. And barely had any clients that would fill out healthcare directive, but I did have quite a few clients that would give the power to sign the power of attorney for the children. I don't know about your guys' experience in a nursing home. Is they willing to sign anything? I don't know, but I had a very difficult time. Any question about healthcare directive and about that? No? A little bit about nursing home and then hospice. Basically, that's two. Still, I would like to cover it. Okay. Nursing home existed in Russia, but the living there was vegetating and slow, miserable dying. Nursing homes were basically a dump site for people who couldn't care of themselves or they didn't have anybody to care for them. It was always fear among old generation that their children would betray them by putting them there. The lasting memory formed a very negative impression of nursing homes of any kind. But when they arrived to United States, and they were visiting different nursing homes and Sholom too, and a lot of my clients were visiting Sholom. They visited friends or neighbors, and they changed their mind. They had different views about nursing home in this country, and some of them were not well. They were not afraid to go to a nursing home after all. And that was a good positive, you know, when I heard that from my clients. I visited a friend and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. That's about nursing home perspective. Oh, hospice is a difficult, that's my last one. Hospice is very, very difficult. I kind of made notes and I would rather read because I can't put my thoughts together right now. I will just read it about hospice, what I think and what we actually have to do, okay? Well, older Russians, again, we're talking about more second generation, whoever, Corey, you asked the question. I'm talking more of the first generation. The second generation are a little bit better and they have more understanding about it. But I'm talking more about people that are in the 80s, 90s, that still consider first generation. And that's what I will tell you about it. Older Russians are not familiar with the concept of hospice and all. It is very difficult to explain it. All they get from explanation is that it's a place of dying, and they don't want to hear about it. When discussing end-of-life issues with a client, healthcare providers and social workers need to understand preferences based on the personal and family views. To ensure a more peaceful death, many families believe that a loved one should not know that death is imminent. The moment of death and the patient's last words are especially significant. In some cases, family prefer to care for the loved ones at home rather than in the nursing home. But if hospice is in their own home, family can accept much better and quicker. I know that hospice could be in a nursing home, hospice could be, I don't know, used to be, you could even have in a hospital, but that's many, many years ago. But now it's very common hospice to have at home. Is that correct? Yeah. Then that what they probably, most of the family prefer be in their own room, in their own home, and have family, anytime, and also have additional help like from PCAs, home health aides. That's what they would prefer, to have hospice at home, and it's more acceptable. I don't know if anything else more you want about hospice. Ask me question, because I have only one more left. Something about a little bit about COVID, just a little bit. Any more question about that?
Judy?
No?
Actually, I have a question, but maybe Judy already has the list of questions that you came up with the group. I guess, how can we integrate the work we do with all that you shared with us? Like, help us with an approach, because I'm actually married to a Russian man myself.
Okay.
And I just gave his parents the 5 wishes, which is a healthcare directive.
Good.
And I was very nervous because of all the things you just said. So I'm dealing with it personally, and then professionally, I've also been treading lightly, taking on some clients with hospice. So you're helping us very much. I guess for me, empowering me with, how to, in this challenging situation that families are in, understand, accept, and work with the gifts that we actually want to provide.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and maybe Judy, you have that written in a different way, but.
Yeah, but I can just tell you something. Right now, talking about the first generation, the second generation, the kids who are more educated, that know more about hospice, they have to talk to the mom and dad, not to wait until the last minute when it comes to the point that it's no choice, but we have to put the client, the mom and dad to the nursing home or to put them on hospice. They have to prepare, in my opinion, you have to prepare that might happen. Talk to them, encourage them to have those 5 wishes or healthcare directives. There are different ways to do it. Explain how important. What I missed one, and I wrote it down. One, I want to tell you very interesting, a very short story. I wrote it down. Svetlana, don't forget to mention that. And now I just realized that I almost forgot. About 10 years ago, 2 brothers and mother. Mother was about 89. She actually, possible, even, I believe she was in Sholom about 10 years ago. She had 2 children, and children had families. And the ages between 2 brothers were 14 years apart. They were, 14 years old. The older brother, mom got very sick, and from the nursing home, she went back to the hospital, and they actually put her on a life support. And the family, were told that without life support, she is not, she's not gonna live much longer. The older brother insisted to pull the life support. He doesn't want mom to suffer because that's what mom probably would not like. No, was nothing, no healthcare directive, no 5 vision, nothing, okay? Not even a power of attorney, was nothing done by this family. The younger brother, who actually said, no, I want to keep the life, I want to keep and help my mother as much as I can. I'm not going to let you to pull the life support. The mother was about over a month on the life support that time because nobody wanted to sign any papers to pull the life support or not to pull the life support. And of course, after a certain time, they let mom go. I mean, they agree to pull the life support. But what do you think happened between those 2 brothers? They still not talking to each other. And it just happened that I know them personally, those 2 brothers. And every time, when I think that that could happen in the families, then of course you have to talk to the families, prepare, especially 5 wishes. Would they like to be on a life support if it happened? And you'll see most of them said, no, I don't wanna, please don't let me be on a life support. It's just the families have to work a little harder and make sure that the parents will sign anything like that. That's my opinion, but you know what? Good luck. I tried. And like I said, 50-50. Some would do it and some no. I don't know. It is difficult, do we want to be resuscitated? If something happened, a heart attack, mom said, yes, of course, why to let me die? Please write this down. No, I'm not going to write. My family will know what to do. Okay, it's going to be too late. You're going to be in the hospital. Oh, I know. It's difficult. Anything else? I don't know if I answered your question, but I just gave you an example of what can happen. And it's not a very nice example, but it happened.
I have a comment.
Yes.
My name is Mark, and I'm a hospice registered nurse with Sholom. And so in some of my experiences, as you said too, like that, that acceptance of death or not, and it comes in various forms. And, one of them, is if you say, okay, we sign on hospice, and they'll turn around and look at me and say, why aren't they dead already then? If they're dying, why aren't they already dead? Mm-hmm. So there's that there's a process to get there, and to have, that there's a certain way that it occurs. Like education in that form, we've done a lot of that with folks. And some of it is that protecting the parent too, where they don't want to talk about it. The kids realize that the parent's going to die, but they want to save them the trouble and the strife of knowing their death is approaching. So there's been the 2 different things that I've seen, whereas if we talk about it, it will happen, right? And then if we don't talk about it, it won't happen. It's kind of that denial thing. But then there's the other one where it is very much protecting. And so, you see it both ways. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, it's not just with care, but like, death, but also I noticed with medications, like if as American society, we have this idea of I'm sick, give me a pill to fix it. But I found with the people I've met with Russian heritage is if you take a pill, you're sick almost.
Well, You're right. I have no comments about it because um, it's people are like you're right in denials. Okay, family might know, but they still in denial that you're gonna lose mom or you're gonna lose dad. The same with the example of the cancer. You know, they're denials that they know, but they don't want to believe it. They want the father to fight for it. If he will find out that he has cancer, he'll stop fight for it. It's just so many examples. Mark, I understand what you're saying. You're absolutely right. With the pill, that's what I wanted to kind of tell you a little bit. It would not be exactly a pill, but I would like to talk just a little bit of the COVID vaccination to compare, okay? If you allow me. It's the same with medication. I encountered that some people will, okay, I will take the pill, I'll get better. And some clients will say, oh, this is just a chemical. It's going to make me sick. I don't want to take it. I'm against medication. Don't they have anything else? I know, Mark. But I think lately it's a little bit better. They do believe in medication, and I had a couple clients that had cancer, and they believe that chemo that they're gonna get will help them because they kind of said if you're not gonna do chemo, you're gonna die. If you don't do chemo, you have a chance to survive. When they hear that, comparison, they usually agree to do even chemo. I cannot say that, everybody, but again, two groups that I told you before, immigration, that Jewish and non-Jewish. It's a big difference talking about medication and vaccinations. It's a big difference. And that's what I had a little bit, I kind of made notes for myself again to talk about the vaccinations. If you allow me, that's the same with medications, okay? May I, or you have more questions? Can I talk about? Yeah, okay. Okay. Um, for instance, recent development with COVID-19 clearly shows different attitude of Russian immigrants toward pandemic, infection, vaccination, medications. More educated groups wants to get vaccinated as soon as possible. And I encountered that mostly my Jewish clients are wanted to do vaccinations and they're trying to get vaccination or trying to get right medication or to get the chemo started right away. But for instance, Baptist, even the younger people I experience on the other side mostly rely on God's help. They are skeptical about science, advancement of modern medicine, and they try to escape any vaccinations whatsoever. And they don't want to take any medication, even they were told that their blood, if they're not going to take medication for blood pressure, they might have a heart attack or a stroke. And you know what? I work with Baptist families also, and I would say 80% of my Baptist families will not agree for vaccinations. They will not agree for chemos, and some of them don't even want to take any medications at all. And that's what I wanted to give you a little bit example of that. I had, and you know what, I just gonna get back a little bit. I have two jobs. I'm sorry I didn't mention. I work part-time as a social worker, community social worker now for the last 2 years. Before that, I worked as a medical coordinator. And my other part-time job, I'm doing some interpreting for families. That's why when I'm talking about Baptist families, then I do a lot of interpretation in the doctor's offices and the hospitals for, helping them as an interpreter. And that's why I'm saying that I have a lot of Baptist families through my other job, but I have a lot of Jewish clients through Jewish Family Service as a social worker. I'm sorry I didn't mention that part. That's why I'm telling you right now, where is this coming from? And I had one example for a Baptist family. A young lady gave a birth to her first child, and I was with her in a delivery room. And she was told that her baby is going to get a vaccination. And unfortunately, I forgot what vaccination it was when a child the younger people, maybe you know, when a child was born, they're giving some kind of a shot, and I can't remember what it was. Is anybody remember? Well, I don't know. You know what that is? No. If you remember it, let me know, because I can't remember.
It could be a few different things. It could be something as simple as the vitamin K shot, but there are routine vaccines we do.
Is that something to do with meningitis possible? Anything
Okay.
to do with the meningitis or something? Well, actually in a hospital, before mom was supposed to go home with the baby, she refused any of those vaccinations. I can't remember what it was. She refused. She signed the paper. I was there. I interpret for her that she's gonna get the vaccinations. She has to, because what's gonna happen if she's gonna refuse. She signed the paper. She said, I'm not gonna do any vaccinations for my baby. 9-month-old baby got very ill. They took him to the emergency room. I find out that later. And he had a swollen brain. And the doctor told her the reason he has a swollen brain, and he was also bleeding and had all kinds of complications, because she did not have that vaccination done in a hospital. She started saying, I'm going to sue the hospital. I wasn't told about these vaccinations. The interpreter didn't tell me. I didn't understand. I don't know what's going on. They pulled all her papers, said, you signed. It was clearly said that you're refusing that and that vaccination, that you don't believe in any vaccinations. Well, I saw the child. He's now about 5 years old. He had complications after that. He is a little bit, how to say that, his right arm, he's okay mentally, did not affect anything, but his right leg and right arm is a little bit not working properly. Not paralyzed, but he has difficult time to use he's a little limping on the right leg a little bit, and the right arm he cannot even write with the right hand, not arm, sorry, hand. It's difficult for him, and he does everything with the left. And this is a side effect from the illness, and I was told that he has meningitis. Then I don't know what vaccination she didn't, she refused. That this is an example sometimes I bring out to my clients when they refuse for vaccinations. I talk to the doctor explains how important, and I don't know. Yes.
In the chat, Rabbi Stiefel had written, I was taught that every Russian Jew born prior to World War II in the former Soviet Union is a Holocaust survivor. Can you tell us about the various traumas that these individuals experienced and how to be sensitive to these issues?
Mm-hmm. I do work with survivors a little bit. That's like a quarter of my job. There are two kinds of survivors. What I mean, two kinds, the people that really went through concentration camps, people that really experienced, and by the way, I visited one of, she's not a client of mine, but I personally know her. She's 96 years old, and she's in your facilities right now. Very smart lady. And those people, somehow they try to forget what had happened to them. They try to forget. The other survivors, the biggest group that I work with is people that were born, let's say 38, 39, it means 40. That means that they were very little when the war started. And only they remember that they got on a train and they ran from Germans. They don't have a lot of memories what exactly happened. They were always with or mom mostly because that possible was on the war. That's from their stories, but they still consider survivors. And those people I mentioned to you, those people are the ones that the generation being a child during the war, they could be very demanding. And I mentioned to you before, and that's what I was talking about. Yes, I wouldn't say that they need a different approach than other people um, because their memories are, I'm repeating myself, just from the stories what the parents were telling them. They don't have a lot of memories because they were little. But yeah.
So I think Rabbi was referring to Russian people specifically, as opposed to Jews further west in Europe, like Germany, etc. So she's asking more specifically about Russian Jews who are considered survivors.
Yes, and that's what I am talking about, Russian Jews. Yeah, yes. For instance, my mom's family, they ran from Lithuania to the south. And my mom was the oldest from 8 children. And she, of course, remembered everything, but the other children, the youngest, like 3 or 4 that were born in 38, in 40, they don't remember much about it. And I don't know what Rabbi is referring, like, exactly. What's your question exactly? I'm sorry, I got.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is trying to be sensitive to the trauma that these individuals have gone through, that either that they have, there's usually a story of fleeing somewhere for safety. There's usually a story of great hunger. There's often a story of many members of the family being murdered or killed. And then and I just taught that's a lot of trauma that they've been through. And then, you know, and now we see them when they're in their 90s, but they've been through that perhaps when they're their teens. And you know, we talk about PTSD for other people, but we don't often talk about PTSD for these individuals.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm talking, people that are in the 90s, like I said, you have somebody that it's your facilities right now that is a survivor. Yes, their memories, of course, everything what you said, yes. How, and most of them, of course, have depression. And some of them agree to take medication, but they don't really want to, in my experience, they don't really want to talk much about what they remember because it brings bad memories and they get depressed. But sometimes some of the clients don't mind to talk about it and they're happy with the life here. Then how to help them, how to approach them, probably an individual cases, case by case. If you'll ask a question, if you see that the client doesn't want to talk about it, don't push it. If some people are more open and they said, well, you know, I will tell you what happened. I was born in Leningrad and it was a blockade of Leningrad. We didn't have anything to eat. I don't know how I actually how I am alive. You know, it's probably case by case. You can always ask a question if you're interested in their life, and some of them were very open and some are not. I don't know if I can answer the question. You guys more professional than I am in this case. And but the younger, like younger generation, a little bit younger, they don't remember much. They said, I just remember being with my mom on a train. Yes, we had some difficult time to eat. But then after the war, they would come back where they from. And that's, you know, and then the school and whatever starts again. And they don't talk much about it. They don't remember much. But the older generation, of course they do. Of course they do. I don't know. I don't know if I have to answer anything. I don't know.
I have another question. In our role, most of us on the screen here are functioning as end-of-life doulas, working with hospice. So we're really working with people at the end of their life. And sometimes we do life review, kind of looking back over someone's life, or some of our other important roles are moving through the decline of people as they move toward death, and often openly talking about that, meaning, you know, you'll see that you're going to have less interest in food, or you won't be able to talk as much, or eventually you won't be able to talk at all, and even opening your eyes will get hard. I mean, so we talk about sort of what they can expect both in a physical sense, but also helping them move toward death in a peaceful way, so that they're not, if we're doing our job and isn't always totally successful, but, you know, trying to have people move toward a peaceful death and a non-traumatic death. And so it does take a lot of communication, what we do. And, you know, we're looking, I think I've talked to you about this, trying to find an interpreter who might work with us for free, us doulas, who we are unpaid employees at Sholom and are looking for some way to find that. But even with an interpreter, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of those kind of discussions. One, with the people who are actually going through it, if they're cognitively intact, or that generation of children. So more people in their 50s and 60s and maybe 70, you know, even, you know, the children of the first generation folks, like, how comfortable do you think they are with having these kinds of discussions?
Well, you know, you put it so well. It's, you know, it's so nice to hear what you're saying. Not everyone, especially, you know, with the Russian speakers, will like you to hear what you just said. It's going to be more difficult to open the eyes. It's going to be, you might not like the food that we're going to give it to you, because I don't think everybody would, that everybody would like. I think probably the best way is to talk to the family and find out what you just said. If you're supposed to talk to mother or father the way that you just described, Judy. And you might hear from the family, from the daughters, and please don't talk to them. Just, you know, ask them, would you like some kind of a music to have? Would you like to watch TV? If they're cognitive, I understand. It could be two different types of people. Could be cognitive but very ill, or could be very ill and completely, you know, cognitive is not there anymore. That, you know, then it's different approaches. But the family can help, if you say, can I talk to your mother about so and so and so? Family will know. Yes, she understands, she's very educated, she's ready to die, she knows she has cancer, she knows, doctor told her, she knows that she has only like 6 months or 4 months to live. That is completely different approach. But there are clients that I gave you examples that have no clue why they're there, why she's not going home. I want to go home, why I'm here. She or he doesn't have any clue. Then it's more family involvement. Then you have to know why the client, how much she knows about herself, why this client is in a nursing home, how much she knows about it. Then you will know how educated the client, how educated they are, what they know about themselves. Maybe to ask this kind of question: do you know why you're here? Do you know why the family did the doctor told you that you need to go to the nursing home? Is the family wants you to be in a nursing home? Are you independent enough that you want to go back home? Something like that, to find out more what they know about their illness and why they are there. That's how I would approach the Russian speakers. And then you will understand what you can and what you can't. I don't know, like I say, I'm not a professional. You guys more professional than I am. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background,
Yeah. Well, you have
Svetlana, I just want to say that you've given us, our time is nearly up, and so I want to be respectful of our time, but I just want to say I think that you've given us a lot of really insightful information to help do the work, particularly the doulas, but also there's a lot of hospice staff on the call today. And I'm thankful that we're recording it so that we can share it with the folks who can't be here today. So I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
I'm also very, very thankful for Judy Marshall for helping to get this going and making the connection to bring you here with us this morning.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving such a try to speak. I don't know. You know what? I also have kind of my notes. I can type a little bit better, correct the mistakes, and I can maybe even email to you. That would be a little bit.
Would love that.
Huh?
I would love that. You can send them to Judy. Judy can send them on to me, and I'll forward them to the staff and make sure people get them that want them. I would love that.
Except it's not going to be those examples that I gave you about 2 brothers, about that little kids that the mom refused to do vaccination. I did not write this down. But overall, what we talked about is on my papers. I can do that. Maybe
that would be wonderful. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
And thank you again.
3 chats, and I did not answer any of them. I don't know.
Oh.
Well,
no.
You got it. You got it. We got it for you. Judy read it to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I hope I helped at least a little bit.
No, you
did.
Very helpful. Thank
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I have this recorded, and I will send it out to everyone when it's when I get it up to film.
Okay. Call me anytime if you have additional question or email.
Oh, well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Rhonda. Thanks.